Alright guys, what we have here is Moscow on fire, and it is not yet even the celebration of the Russian Victory Day. Well, the Russian Defense Ministry already officially reported that they've shut down all of the Ukrainian drones which were flying to hit some of the very important facilities of the Russian Defense Ministry. But yeah, unfortunately for some of the Russian citizens, those drones, after they were hit, went to the local residential buildings. Yeah, it happens, but it's not the Ukrainian fault, and honestly guys, I don't really care, because Russia strikes Ukrainian infrastructure on purpose. I mean civilian one, residential buildings where usual people live. On the other hand, Ukraine has never that infrastructure as the primary target. It only might happen if Russia somehow shuts down Ukrainian drones or use electronic warfare to change the direction of those UAVs. By the way, my friends, hello and welcome. My name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go. Alright, and Russian channels report about the Ukrainian strike on Strela facility which makes electronics for the Russian army in Bryansk Oblast. There were multiple of the KBIMs, and this time Ukraine used HIMARS systems, and Ukraine really intensified strikes on Russian facilities, mostly using drones. I guess that's the way how to show to the foreign leaders that it's better not to attend Moscow for celebration of this Putin's Victory Day. For example, this morning Russia was even forced to close some of their airports, including the main government airport of Moscow, which is Vnukovo, and by the way, I've flown there many of the times. But it was before the annexation of Crimea. And Ukraine is just responding on Russian strikes. For example, yesterday Russia hit one of the malls in Kiev. And also several residential buildings were damaged. As usual, Russia launches way more drones to hit Ukraine, unfortunately, compared to Ukrainian response. Yeah, sometimes it might happen even in Moscow. And about the coming Russian military parade and celebration, they sent 200 more air defense systems to the Moscow region. They've created several of the layers of defense. They put those systems on the roofs of the buildings. Everything is done to protect Putin and his guests, but after all, Ukraine managed to get to Moscow today with the drones. And yeah, those were shut down, but Ukraine launched just 4 of the drones. And Zelensky said that Russia might conduct some of the provocation against Ukraine in Moscow on Celebration Day. Slovakian Prime Minister Fico said that he's not sick any longer, but some of the European authorities are not allowing him to visit Russia. They're blocking the airspace for his jet. And yeah, Ukrainian airspace is blocked, so Fico has to go through the other countries, but he complains that he just can't. Well, Fico, you may go to Turkey, to Istanbul, and from Istanbul you can go to Moscow. Just go there by Russian airline Aeroflot, which operates airplanes without proper maintenance, navigation update, and so on. My friends, now I want to share my thanks to my Patreon supporters and members of this channel. Guys, you do awesome job just keeping me running and publishing videos on YouTube almost every day. Guys, thank you so much for supporting my motivation, and those who want to join my Patreon, I'm gonna put the link right in the video description. Thank you so much, guys. Again, you're just awesome. About the case with the Russian fighter jets which were shot down by Ukrainian drone boats, well, here we have the real image of the Ukrainian drone boat, which carries at least 2 of the anti-aircraft missiles. And those are AIM-9 missiles. However, as it been reported, the Russian aircraft was shot down by P-73 missile, which is, I guess, air-to-air missile. And AIM-9 is also air-to-air missile, so how Ukraine launches those from the drone boats, how it managed to do it, well, that's the big question, but it works. Well, actually, those kind of the missiles are very old, they're in production for decades. And Kirill Budanov, the head of the Ukrainian intelligence, has confirmed that Russia lost 2 of the Sukhoi Su-30 jets, and both of those were downed by Ukrainian drone boats. Awesome job. Meanwhile, Russians are sharing those kind of the videos telling that America has a longbow Hellfire system which could be used against the small boats. Well, it was tested against those kind of the boats which could be used by the modern day pirates, for example, but the size is similar to Magura drone boat. Well, missile just flies away from the ship and next it hits the boat very precisely, then the other one. So yeah, it's very effective weaponry, but you know what? Russia doesn't have the one. And that is basically why they're forced to use their fighter jets, helicopters and other tools to get rid of Ukrainian drone boats. And that caused lots of the losses for the Russian aviation before they lost some of the helicopters and now fighter jets. It seems like after all Ukraine applies its control over the Black Sea, the part of the Black Sea, without having any sort of the marine fleet except those drone boats. Ukraine here is basically making the history. And here, my friends, in the middle of this video, I ask you to press your huge like and subscribe for the channel, because that is how you propel this video in YouTube algorithms. So many more people would watch my content if you'll be more interactive with it yourself. So thank you so much for your kind support. Alright, it was a really long story, but finally it seems like we have the green light for the supplements of the Patriot systems from Israel. Yeah, Israel doesn't use at least 2 of the systems they have, and they require maintenance, and according to the latest information, those were sent for maintenance before being supplied to Ukraine. Well, actually we were speaking about this opportunity even the last year, but finally the talks about the deal have been renewed, and not just talks but real actions. For example, sending those systems for maintenance, which is already the great sign for Ukraine. As I've told you before, the air defense capabilities of Ukraine are integrated into mineral deal that was recently signed. Good news for Ukrainian Air Force, the new pilot training program will be organized in cooperation with Czech Republic. It was announced yesterday during the visit of Vladimir Zelensky to Czech Republic. Right guys, so now let's go for the military map update. Unfortunately for today, there is only the advancement of the Russian army. Nevertheless, here I want to say about the situation as it is. So Russians went from Zelene Pole towards Alexandropol. So it was yesterday and it is today. They also expanded the gray area. All of this territory is not that far away from the tourist direction. If we check out for the last week and today, you may see that Russia definitely aimed to cut this road for Ukraine completely, absolutely, partially it was already cut, and their goal is actually to move northbound to Konstantinovka. But Russians not only need to cross lots of the kilometers from the south here, and by the way there are lots of the obstacles including the natural ones, but they also need to go from the Chasiv Yar, and from Chasiv Yar advancement they're not that successful. And now let's go to Liman direction. Here for the very long time Russia moved ahead once again. So yesterday and today we just received this military map update. Clearly the idea for Russia is to expand this bridgehead even more, to go to Liman itself later on, and after it to Slavyansk. Well, those are the greatest possible plans for Russia, but how they will implement those in real life, I'm out of clue. With the resources they now currently have, it is absolutely not possible. Again and again in my videos, I'm telling that they're scrolling on the front lines, taking just small parts of the territory with heaviest losses possible. That is how they fight, and Putin is not interested in turning away from these tactics. Moreover, Putin mentioned yesterday that reconciliation with the Ukrainian part of the Russian people is irreversible. Ukrainian part of the Russian people, not Ukraine. For Putin, Ukraine simply does not exist. Ukraine is some sort of the fake country for the Russian regime, and that's why they start this war. You know, for Putin, we're just Russians. And once again, Putin mentioned that Russia is following the goals of the special military operation, which are achievable without even using nukes. And here we have the statistics of the Russian assaults published since the beginning of the year. You may see that gradually Russia intensified their attacks. At the end of March and beginning of April, Russia started massive attacks using their big convoys. These tactics completely failed for them, and because of the heavy losses they decided to take a break for a while, but now, yeah, you can see intensification, which is also connected to pretty much good weather, so Russia may attack using every sort of the vehicles or just go across the fields on their own feet. And yeah, in general they take more ground from Ukraine compared to what it was several weeks ago. While the Deep State military map source published the information that most of the Russian attacks they fail, but nevertheless sometimes Russia is successful by moving forward, mostly with infantry forces. They use vehicles and even tanks to break Ukrainian defense, but later on they go with infantry. Or they go just with infantry or simultaneously with vehicles and infantry. They use different tactics. And just not to receive heavy losses, the Ukrainian army usually withdraws from the positions and continue to operate with FPV drones. So yeah, Russia takes the ground, but what price they pay? They lost since the beginning of the war almost 950,000 soldiers, including KA and wounded personnel. So soon it's gonna be 1 million. Kind of the sad news are coming from Romania. Sad news, I mean, for Ukraine, for our democracy, and for Romania itself. Well, they had the presidential elections, and according to the polls, this guy, whose name is George Simon, is winning. The guy is far right and actively pro-Russian. Wow, what a surprise. Usually those are political outcasts, but we see how Europe really changes. I mean, how people vote really for those stupid populists who use the very plain rhetorics, but you know, it seems like the problem lies within the society itself, because somehow most of the Americans, like majority of the voters, elected Donald Trump as well in USA, and he's like complete incompetent idiot. Well, the same problems are out there in Romania, for example, also in Slovakia, Hungary, and far-right AfD in Germany also is quite popular. By the way, it was recognized as the extremist party in Germany, which is a good move. And by the way, this guy is persona non grata in Ukraine as well as in neighboring country Moldova. So I just hope that those people who voted for the other candidates would vote against this guy in the second round. And the second round of elections is coming because this pro-Russian guy, he doesn't get 50%. That's at least good. And some polls actually say that he got 30 up to 33%. Well, in any case, there will be the second round. Okay, so the White House official page turned to complete idiocracy before they tweeted the image of Donald Trump as the Pope. And now they post this stuff, which I guess Donald Trump created again. May the force be with you. So it was published on May the 4th. It seems like we all live in some kind of the South Park episode. That is how cringy and unreal everything looks, especially what comes from the United States politics and Donald Trump and his team. And yeah, if we speak about the reference to the Star Wars, why does Donald Trump has the red sword? It should be bright blue if he's on a good side. But all around it doesn't matter, because posting that from official page is the total cringe. Now, my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. Also, subscribe for this channel. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.